new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. Is this thing on? Yes, it's on. We're trying a new...
it's on. We're live.
Yeah, we're trying a new recording system because there are certain powers that be said you're not allowed to use the other one without paying us a bunch of fucking money. You know, it's capitalism for you, you know. We're trying something new. So if there's some hiccups or some headaches or something, you might hear us raging against the machine and screaming our gun lungs out. But we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. You know, I mean,
definitely.
Maybe an improper content for the movie we're doing today. We should have smoked a big blunt, and it'll be just chill as easy to get through it, you know. But that's not how we roll.
As Jay says, doobie snacks.
That's right. Smoking. but man, it's I'm ready, man. Let's do this. It's the Rebel Radio Podcast. This is Mark.
This is Matt.
And as always, you can find us at therebelradiopodcast.com, in case you did not know that. And on most all the cool podcast apps, where all the cool generations listen to their podcasts and stuff, you know, which is pretty fly for a white guy. You know.
That's right.
But man, I've been off work this week, and man, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling accomplished. I got the garage pretty much cleaned up. Got rid of a bunch of shit. So obviously we're fucking movie guys, right? You know, we talk about movies.
Yeah.
And so I have tons of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I decided it was to finally clean house on some DVDs, man, because I don't need them. I kept my Blu-rays because I like the quality, but a lot of this stuff is available streaming now. So I cleaned out about 6 boxes of DVDs, and there's some box sets in there, Game of Thrones, things like that. You're talking, anywhere from $500 to $1,000 worth of DVDs. I'm not going to lie. It's how much I had. You know how much I got for them? Just take a guess.
$20.
You're right on the money. $20.54.
Damn.
And I'm just like, I was a little shocked, but I'm just like, I get it. The demand's just not there. Even in half price books, all the DVDs are $3.99. You know, it's just, if I had done this maybe 2 years ago, maybe, but now it's just like 8. Would you imagine 75% of content's available streaming? It's fair to say.
Wow.
How often do we come up doing these movies? We can't find it streaming somewhere. Maybe once a year we have to rent a movie, maybe twice.
Yeah.
It's almost all available,
that's
man.
Fair.
If we don't own it and we have to rent it and it's not streaming, it's pretty rare. I'd say 75%. And so it's hard to justify those places buying the stuff, but at the same time, I feel good I got rid of the stuff because I didn't need it. It's been sitting in boxes for a couple of years. You know, it's pointless. Let someone else have some junk,
Exactly.
So it is what it is.
It's just taking up space,
Exactly. And I've either upgraded it to Blu-ray already, or I've got a digital copy of it, or I can watch it digitally if I want. So it's just the times we live in. It's the same thing with music. Unless it's a new Pearl Jam album, I don't buy new CDs anymore. It's just like it's all, you can pull up Spotify, and man, half time you can listen to a new record before it even hits stores on Spotify, Yeah. And I have CDs I need to go through next. That'll be next vacation in December. I might go through all my music. But it's just like, it's just a different world we live in. But we saw this coming 20 years ago. We knew it, man. When there was a time where people were saying, hey, this is all coming, it's all going to the internet. So it's not, the advent of YouTube in the early 2000s, kind of led the way to streaming content, and of course Netflix. And so it's not really a surprise, but, and I'm okay with it, man. I think you have to embrace it. You have to embrace the new ways.
Yeah. I think you buy more actual physical Blu-rays than I do, but it's like now with the ability to save space, it's
hard, man.
Bought everything digitally and backed it up.
Like this week, man, I know I have access to some of your accounts. We share some accounts, and even though you had Spider-Verse on your account, I wanted a copy of Across the Spider-Verse, and for $8, I just bought it digitally, man. It's like, it's hard to justify buying a physical copy. Now, there's some things I feel different, like Dial of Destiny. I might go ahead and buy a physical copy of that just because that's a classic thing I grew up with, and maybe Mission Impossible to complete since I have them all, but that might be it. The last 2 this year, and the next year, who knows if I'll buy anything, but it is harder and harder to justify, like you said, saving space. And as you have children, you have other things that take up space, like their heads.
Yeah.
So it's just the time we live in, man. And, but it's okay. How are you been, man? How was your week?
Yeah, I mean, same like you. I didn't have as many days off, but I go back tomorrow. But I had some days off and got some stuff done. I cleaned up the yard and I did clean up my garage too. So I guess we're both just cleaning house all week.
Well, it was good weather, man. It was awesome weather.
Yeah,
a little cold in the mornings, but the afternoons were fucking great.
Halloween was nice. It was nice and cool. Costumes didn't get too overheated. But I feel like there's been less participation every year.
Oh.
Maybe it's just because it was during a school.
Did you go to your mom's week, or were you at your neighborhood?
I went to my mom's. Yeah, I went to my mom's.
Dude, my brother's neighborhood was rocking. There were kids everywhere. I mean,
oh, okay.
So I guess it just depends on where you go, man. But some neighborhoods are different than others, I guess,
Yeah. We did get like a group of kids that came late. And and I say kids, they're like teenagers, doing trick-or-treating. And they came at like almost 9 o'clock. That was the latest we got. It was like right whenever we're packing everything up. We're like, okay, it's like a ghost town out there.
I was back home about 10 minutes after 9, had to get the kids in bed. Shit.
Oh yeah. No, I was definitely home by like 9:30, 9:35 or something like that. But yeah, man, it was it's a lot different just doing it during a school night,
Right.
Get to stay out as late. I remember and when I was in high school, we stayed out till like 11 o'clock at night,
a little different.
trying to hit every house.
Well, we also did not, I swear, and my mom says this too, we didn't go to school at 7 a.m. It was like 8:05. And now these schools start earlier, but I think it's a bit, society's changed. I think there's a lot more trunk or treats, church things. Like you said, school night, it's a busier world than we were kids, man. Kids are in sports and different activities. They're always going. So, there's also the movement that Halloween's not cool. It's devil's holiday and all that bullshit. So you have less people, these millennials and shit, not celebrating, with their children. I mean, because, it's the pussification of society. It's like,
yeah, I had someone, it was like years ago, someone sending me that a pumpkin is a gateway for evil into your home. Right. And I was like, then stay away from the grocery stores because there's tons of pumpkin stuff over there. It's in a can. It's every grocery store you go to is a gateway.
I guess so.
Like friggin' the 9th gate in every store.
Yeah, whatever. But that said, though, man, I did. Jesus Christ! I did watch a couple of things this week. Sorry for the interruption. The door slammed in my house for some reason, but I watched. What I watched? Oh, you had seen this. I watched Gunpowder Milkshake on Netflix with. Karen Gillan from Nebula from the Guardians of the Galaxy films, and it was pretty predictable pedestrian action film, but it was okay. I mean, it had some moments in it.
Yeah.
It's always good to see Lena Headey in movies. I always think she's good. It was, it was all right. I mean, they were trying, it's like a John Wick ripoff in a way. They tried to create the society of the firm with assassins and all this. And it was always good to see Paul Giamatti on screen too. But,
oh yeah,
it was, and then it was weird because it tried to be more comedic than John Wick, obviously, but then it would have like these really pretty brutal, violent action scenes that just didn't seem to fit with the theme of the film. It's like it's kind of like Guy Ritchie has comedies in Snatch and Lock, Stock, and there's comedic elements, but he doesn't overdo the blood and guts. Where in Gunpowder Milkshake, it's like, okay, let's be extremely bloody and try to be funny too, and it was kind of weird.
Trying to go too far on both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and
you got to keep it a little tighter than that. I mean,
Karen Gillan is good in it, and it was okay. Nothing spectacular.
Isn't Sally Fields in that movie?
No.
Who am I thinking?
No. It was
for some reason I thought Sally Fields.
No, it's Lena Headey, Michelle Yeoh, Angela Bassett.
Michelle, yeah.
It was okay. It had those really. It was one of those movies with the really bad guys who want to talk like this and act like they're tough. And the one guy sounded like a Vin Diesel light version or something. And a bunch of bad guys that were cast where no one's ever heard of any of these actors. So it's kind of like, who are these guys? And they're trying. They just come across as standard thugs. It was okay. And I watched that, and then I watched. I did finish Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Master. That was okay.
Okay.
What, man, there was something else I watched. What the fuck was it? Brain's farting here, man. Damn it.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Oh, yeah. I watched parts of it with Wyatt. It was pretty terrible. Badly acted. It's so badly acted. I can see why Peacock was like, oh, we're going to put this on streaming at the same time. Crazy it made money because it has a built-in audience. The games have been around a long time. But it's poorly acted. I was just like watching it with him, like, God, they're reading off the script. They're reading cue cards. It's just bad. The Freddy stuff was the characters were okay. Then you have fat Matthew Lillard show up as the bad guy at the end. And I'm like, oh, it's Matthew Lillard, and he's fat and old. It's weird. It just wasn't that good. It was okay. You were probably a little kinder to it in your review than I am. I just thought overall it was pretty bad movie. Like it makes no sense at all. It's like, oh, these things are possessed by these children. Oh, we're just going to say, yeah, they're possessed. There's no explanation to it. There's no science behind it. There's nothing. It's put together pretty poorly. It just wasn't very good.
Yeah. Whenever I was watching it with Jake, his complaint was that a lot of the lore wasn't in the film, which would have explained some things. But I told him, I was like, sometimes it's really hard to make, put all that in and then tell the story that's on hand. So you may have, if you've played the game, but if you don't,
right,
then you're just kind of like, this doesn't make that much sense. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah, it wasn't that great, sadly. But other than that, man, I mentioned I rewatched Across the Spider-Verse, and such an amazing movie. Like I said, I keep bouncing back and forth between that and Dead Reckoning as my number one of the year. But I'll decide between now and the last episode of the year when we do our top 5 movies of the year. And shit, man, John Wick 4 is out this year too, man. It's going to be a tough top 3,
Dude, yeah.
It's going to be tough.
That's not going to be easy to come up with 3.
No. And other than that, man, I feel like I watched something else, but if it comes to me, Armani, what would you check out this week?
I checked out, a couple horror movies. I dressed up as Michael Myers from Halloween Ends. Got the Trick or Treat Studios mask and and I got an actual coverall, and ended up looking real good. But so to get into that mode, I did watch a couple more Halloween movies. I rewatched Halloween Ends, which was a little disappointing the way they went with that. I'm still a little disappointed in it. I think Halloween Kills is better. And then I watched the original Halloween. I watched. I can't remember the last time I've seen The Exorcist, and it was on Max. So I watched The Exorcist, and then I watched the Bill Burr's directorial debut, Old Dads.
I heard it's actually pretty funny.
It was released on Netflix. I liked it. It's definitely for the older millennial or the Gen Xer, or the baby boomer. It's got a lot of those anti woke tropes in there, and jokes about cancel culture and stuff like that. And then Bill Burr's doing his thing, and it's definitely worth a watch. So I saw some people just giving mixed reviews on it. I'd see one where they're like, oh, it's great. And then one where they're like, oh man, it sucks. It doesn't, it falls on deaf ears.
One of those movies where you either get the jokes or you don't. So it depends on your age, probably.
And Burr, I think Burr's definitely one of those comedians where you either love him or you hate him.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I'll be honest, I'm not super familiar with him other than, The Mandalorian and the little bits I've seen and different things, but, he's never done anything to bother me,
Yeah. That's like, I understand,
the little
like
bit I've seen of him,
comedy,
I find him
like,
funnier than Pete Davidson, I've never got why people thought that guy's funny, just like.
Pete is like a modern day Ben Stiller for me. It's like situation. You put him in a situation, he can, do some things within that situation. I feel like, but if you ask for him to like, just be funny,
right.
I don't think it works. You've got to put him in a skit. You've got to put him in a scene and build some stuff around him, and then he can, work within that environment.
Yeah.
Bill, he just, he comes up with his stuff and it's great. I like, when he's talking about how men and women argue, I'll go off on a tangent, I guess, but, he talks about how men, men usually argue to the point and women do that too. But when women start to lose the argument, they go rogue and they try and like get an emotional response out of you so that you say something dumb. And then you get into like another room and they're like, and then now you're the bad guy and then you're apologizing to them. And I was like, man, you know what? That makes sense. Maybe that's, that's why it's like, I feel like, hey, where did we take the wrong turn? He was like, maybe he's got it figured out, but, he's pretty funny, man. I like him. And it's a good movie. It's definitely worth a watch. It's got some nudity in it, so don't watch it with any kids in it. And yeah, so that's what I checked out.
I do remember the one other thing I checked out because I did a couple nights ago, and it might have been the night before Halloween. So it was a few nights ago. I watched the first episode. There's an animated series on HBO Max called Scavenger's Reign, and it's been getting very good reviews. And it's only about 6 episodes in, and it's weird. It's bizarre. It's classic standard animation with some CGI animation in it. And it's extremely intriguing just after one episode. It's these people that are stranded on this alien planet trying to figure out how to get off of it. And it's one of those movies where it puts you into this world and lets you immerse yourself in it without them over-explaining everything. It's like watching a really great comic book come to life in some ways. It's really good. I mean, I only watched the first episode and I'm in. And I think we've been so busy the last couple of nights with Halloween and baseball last night, I haven't had a chance to go back and watch the second episode yet. But I really liked it. I like weird. We've talked about this on the show before. I like weird, strange science fiction like that. So I think it's definitely worth checking out. I was just scrolling through Max and I saw this, like, what is this animated show? Scavenger's Reign. And then I noticed it's TVMA. So I'm like, okay, it's not for kids. And I'm like, and I didn't see anything in the first episode wasn't necessarily for kids other than it's very mature storytelling, I guess. So, kids would be bored with it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to check. I'm going to get more into that. I really like what I saw so far of Scavenger's Reign on Max. So that's the other thing I checked. I knew there was something else I watched, just couldn't remember. Otherwise, I checked out some news and a new trailer hit today, which, man, I wasn't expecting this trailer this soon. I knew they were making another Planet of the Apes film, and I knew it was coming summer 24. But I had no idea that the film was this far along into production. With the strikes and everything that's happened, it's hard to keep up with what's been going on. But we're getting a fourth film in the Planet of the Apes series and the reboot series. This is a sequel. It's not a reboot. It takes place, several years after the battle, after the story of War for the Planet of the Apes, where we saw Caesar die. And this is going to be about his son, Cornelius, and continuing what his father started as the apes have taken over planet Earth. And it is called Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And the trailer came out today, and it's coming out Memorial Day weekend next year. And man, the trailer, I mean, it looked wonderful, looked amazing to me. It looks like we're going to have another, hopefully they can continue the great storytelling we got in the other 3 films. If you pay attention, there's definitely things that were alluded to in the last film, that there are other sects of apes out there. And it looks like there's a whole other kingdom with the gorillas leading them. They mentioned that in the last one, that there's other apes out there.
Yeah.
And it looks like that's where we're headed as Cornelius has to keep his father's group of apes together and alive as battling these new enemies. It's the old war. What was the rule? Ape does not kill ape. But you know what? In a new society like this, it looks like things are going to change, and I absolutely can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to add some new conflict. It looks like it's like you said, it's consistent with the other films in that it looks good. The stories have always been good, so I expect a good trip to the movies.
I mean, it's been my favorite reboot trilogy out of all these reboots. It's been my favorite. I can safely say that I've enjoyed it a lot.
They did it well. It's like and James Franco did a pretty good job on that first movie. And Franco's not a great actor, I wouldn't say. He's usually good in his roles, but I thought that was a really good role for him.
How awesome was Woody Harrelson in War for the Planet of the Apes as the bad guy? He was incredible.
Dude. Yeah, man. He was nuts.
I mean, it's a great series. I love the originals too. We've covered a couple of the originals. We've covered Rise. I think this gives us reason to do Dawn of the Planet of the Apes as it gets closer, the second part of the new trilogy. But man, I can't wait. I'm excited for that, man. I'm looking forward to it. This we kind of saw coming. The fans of the CW shows Superman and Lois, it's going to end with this current season. James Gunn last year, whenever they made all the announcements, he said, "Oh yeah, Superman and Lois is going to continue on." But let's be fair, down deep inside the DC vaults, this was James Gunn's doing. Nope, the show's ending after the season. I've only watched the first episode of this. I just decided not to get into it because I didn't want to get involved in their show. But I've heard nothing but really good things about this show. They say it's a really good it's telling the Superman story. But it's going to end with this season for those that did get into it. No surprise here. The Penguin spinoff that's going to bridge the Batman with the Batman 2 is pushed back to at least fall of next year now. It was due in the springtime, but another victim of the strikes and everything. So pushed back. At this point, all we can say is we hope these strikes end soon. And we're going to stay with DC for a second before getting into all these crazy Marvel rumors. Nicolas Cage, man, did a little interview this week, and he talked about how he came in to film his Flash cameo, and he stood there in a suit. It was supposed to be like him watching the destruction of the world. And he said when he saw the movie, he was a little surprised that he's fighting the giant spider. He goes, "I didn't shoot all that, but they must have CGI'd it." And he's like, he didn't say anything negative about it, but then the headlines will say, Nick Cage is disgusted by his Flash cameo. I'm like, that's not what he says in the interview at all.
And they're like, just listen to this quote. And he goes, "That's not what I filmed." Like, and I'm like, where's
but he's not mad about it. He even has said in other interviews he thought the Flash was good. He enjoyed it. He's a comic book guy like the rest of us, and I just love how they twist the what these actors say. Like Cage is like, it's cool, whatever. Let's be honest. Cage is the type of actor. Hey, I got paid for it. Fuck it, whatever. It's just I mean, I just thought that was funny because Cage is not really the type to really badmouth anything. He's had a good
he hasn't talked bad about the Wicker
No, he's had a good career.
Or the Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Exactly.
Or any of that.
And I just think it's funny how they twist what he said. And we're going to flip to Marvel, man. I'm not going to get too heavy into this. There's all kinds of Marvel rumors floating this week about from everything to making another Avengers movie with the original cast to maybe just one of the original cast members coming back and they're already signed on, which is strange because Jeremy Renner never left. He's the only one that's still there under contract. Yeah. He just obviously had his accident. To them rebooting the storyline by pushing Kang out now with the Jonathan Major stuff and bringing Dr. Doom in, which, if you ask me, I said it a long time ago they should have done Dr. Doom and Galacticus since they're making a Fantastic Four movie.
Yep.
So, because early word on the Marvels is it's not that great. So it looks like Marvel Studios is panicking a little bit. I don't know what to make of all this other than we wait and see. Get the new Captain America movie out there, and hopefully it's good. You gotta.
They're freaking out about these pre-sales, man. Right? And it's like the pre-sales are low.
Well, that and
the lowest it's ever.
You
been.
Announced this new phase, and we said this before. You've had the rights to the X-Men for a couple of years now, but no X-Men announcements. You've had the rights to Fantastic Four. You keep delaying the film. You can't get a director. Those are two bread and butter moneymakers, the Fantastic Four and the X-Men. Get them rolling, Kevin Feige. Spider-Man. You left Spider-Man with all his friends not knowing who he was, with no Spider-Man film in sight. You and Sony kiss and hug, make up, get Tom Holland to do another movie, and make another fucking Spider-Man film. We as fans can fix this for you. But you're over here wanting to make Marvel's movies and characters that people just don't care, you know? I mean, the first Captain Marvel movie was okay at best. You know, does she really need another solo movie? You know, it's like, so we'll see where they go from this. But if the Marvels doesn't do well at the box office, I expect some big change announcement coming soon from Marvel Studios about what's going to happen next. That's all the news. That's it. Well, let's get into today's featured film. Now, it's kind of funny because today is a November, what day are we on? The 3rd? The 2nd? And this episode is going to come out on Tuesday, Monday, which is the 5th. And everyone was like, I already saw things like, wait for the V for Vendetta memes are coming out. Well, I'm going to go ahead and blow our wads. We just chose not to do V for Vendetta this week. We're going to do it next week. Which now that I think, like, because we had done all those heavy movies, man. We did all those horror movies and Halloween and stuff. So we're like, well, let's do something a little more lighthearted this week. And so it's not going to make any sense why we're doing it next week. But fuck it. It's our show. We're doing it that way. So we chose to do a Kevin Smith film today. It's been a while since we've done Clerks 2, which was the last Kevin Smith film. But we're gonna skip Chasing Amy in his order of films, even though we already did Dogma a long time ago and did things kind of backwards. And we're jumping right to what's one of my, I don't know if it's my, I mean, I can agree it's not the best Kevin Smith film, and I don't know if it's my favorite, but between this and Reboot, I always go back to these films because I just find them easy to watch, they're relaxing, they're funny. And today we're going to talk Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. This movie, this is a happy place movie for me, a comfort film.
Yes.
Basically, essentially, so we need to tell a little bit about what happened in Chasing Amy so that we can say what happened this week. So in Chasing Amy is a story about Holden McNeil and Banky Edwards, and they're making a comic book, and it's called Bluntman and Chronic, which is based on Jay and Silent Bob and their alter egos. And so in that movie, you know, Holden falls in love with a girl who's a lesbian, and he ends up writing a comic book called Chasing Amy instead, but yet Bluntman and Chronic was still successful for them too. That's the short story of Chasing Amy. So in this movie, Holden has sold all his rights, or Banky has sold. Yeah, they go visit Brody at the comic shop because they get that. Jay and Silent Bob are hanging out in front of their convenience store like always, and Randall puts a restraining order on them so they can't hang out in front of the Quick Stop.
Yeah,
selling their dope. So they go visit Brody at the mall, and he says, "What are y'all worried about for? Aren't y'all making all that money from the movie y'all made?" And they're like, "What movie?" And he goes, "Oh, you didn't know that there's a movie that's based on the characters y'all are based on?" They're like, "Fuck no, we didn't know this shit." So they go visit Holden, and Holden's like, "No, I mean, I sold my rights to Bluntman Chronic years ago. That's Banky's thing now." And so they decide, in their wisdom, because people on the internet are talking shit about them, about Jay and Silent Bob and how they suck, that they're going to go to Hollywood and stop the movie from being made. So it's a road trip movie featuring Jay and Silent Bob, lots of bad language and lots of dope, and a big fun adventure. This movie, it cracks me up. First off, I love from the opening sequence where like selling weed, $15, little man, put that shit in my hand, to the Scooby-Doo scene, to the scene with Brent where they kick him out of the car because he's a sheep fucker. This is classic stoner comedy 101 throughout this film.
That was funny. He's like, "What if you were a sheep?" It's like, "Wouldn't you do it?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I guess so." And he's like, "Oh, sheep fucker.
You're a dirty sheep fucker." They go into the movies and they're like, "Oh, look, it's the internet." And they're up there. Let's see what these chuckleheads are talking about. They're in the middle of this fucking restaurant. Like, they will eat our shit.
There's fucking kids everywhere.
There's kids everywhere. And it's so
They're going to eat our shit and they're going to shit it out. And then we're going to serve that shit to them.
One of the best parts about this movie, if you pay attention, is Kevin's face as Silent Bob. He makes the best facial expressions for what Jay says, because a lot of people don't know. A lot of times when he makes these movies, he allows Jason to do his thing and to ad lib. So sometimes Kevin doesn't know what's coming out of his mouth, and he'll look at it, and his facial expressions are hilarious. Like, are you really fucking just say that? And Kevin's talked about that before his podcast. He goes, sometimes I have no idea what Jay's going to say. So he says a lot of my reactions are very genuine. I'm like, what? And I think that's hilarious that he trusts his friend to do this. Then, so they get caught up in a deal where they meet Justice, which is played by Shannon Elizabeth, and with a very humorous scene where Jay goes into a daydream and gets a huge boner in the middle of the movies, and as he sees Justice walk in,
kind of like Garth in Wayne's World,
right? And so they decide to tag along with him, and it turns out that they're jewel thieves, and they use Jay and Silent Bob as their patsies, so they can get away with it. And then, which leads to some hilarious scenes with Will Ferrell, and he's like, "This is my hetero life mate, Silent Bob," and then he goes, "What does he say?" He goes, "This movie's definitely not woke culture. This movie is pre-woke culture." He's like, "Oh, he's 100% gay."
Oh yeah, dude. There's so much. The smack talk that comes out of Jay's mouth is definitely a product of the late '90s, early 2000s, and you definitely wouldn't see that in a movie made nowadays. I think it's hilarious that Shannon Elizabeth's character just loves Jay for like who he is, which is something that I guess Heather Graham couldn't wrap her head around, because originally she was offered the role, I guess, but she's like, this doesn't make sense. What does she see in him? I don't get it. So she turned it down.
And that's why she's
what I
making
think? I think she was
now.
Yeah, maybe if she would have been up to making out with Jay Muse, that it would have been okay. Everything would have turned out okay. But nope, role went to Shannon Elizabeth, and she is running along with Eliza Dushku, and she's doing her. We see her while she's still in Diamonds doing her Bring It On thing, doing the backflips and stuff. And then the chick from Varsity Blues who walked out with the whipped cream bikini.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, she's from Final Destination too. A lot of horror movie, actresses here. Shannon Elizabeth did 13 Ghosts. You've got Liza Dushku did Wrong Turn, and then I think her name's Leia, as she did Final Destination. So you've got 3 Scream queens there. Pretty interesting. Just thought about that.
And Kevin's wife is in the movie.
And Kevin's wife, yeah.
Which is one of those things that I always find her to be strangely cast in the movies. And I get it. We'd all do. We want to have our friends. If I made a movie, I'd have you in the fucking movie, But it's like, I'm sorry, Kevin, your wife's just not very good. It's just like she falls pretty flat when she's acting with Eliza Dushku and Shannon Elizabeth, girls that have a lot of acting experience. Your wife's just kind of like, she's just sort of there. Yeah. And it's like,
like a sofa.
Yeah. But, it's okay. Well, she was okay in Clerks too. But in this movie, I find her kind of just pointless to even be there.
Yeah. Yeah. All she is like, the getaway driver. And then she has a couple, lines that she says when she's with the girls.
But did this come out after Clerks 2 or before? This was 2001.
Before. This is before.
Okay.
Because remember, Jay had that little falling out with, with Kevin. And he said, if you get clean, it's like, if you don't get clean, I'm not talking to you again. He stole his money and stuff. And if you do get clean, I'll make another movie with you. And that other movie was 5 years later with Clerks 2.
Right. That's right. I remember now. Yeah, because this movie had a lot of production issues because of Jason and his constant drug use at the time. I remember that. But good thing he got clean, man. He's doing real well now. He's a father now.
Yeah, man.
And doing well. And I met him, about 10 years ago, and he was a super nice guy to me. I met him and Kevin before. He was really good, really cool person. Oh, man, then we didn't even talk. The great Mark Hamill cameos in this movie at the end.
Yeah.
So
and Princess Leia.
And, yeah.
She was the nun.
Oh,
Yep.
And the great George Carlin.
Yes.
If it gets me a few miles, I'll take a shot in the mouth. Like,
yeah.
I'll make with
crazy.
What happens if you don't make with the head? Well, I throw you on the side of the road if you don't make with the head.
That's right.
Do you live by the book? Yes, I do live by.
Yeah, she's a friggin' nun.
She's a nun.
Like, oh yeah, the book.
and that's fucked up, man. Chris Rock, he plays the director of the Bluntman and Chronic movie.
He's great.
He was really funny in it, and he goes, "There's a lot of white people in this movie set."
And then he's like, "There's a lot of white chicks in my van." He's like, "They all want a part, and I got one for them."
Taste the book of flavor.
Yeah.
So,
Jamie Kennedy.
Yeah.
And who? Oh yeah, Mark Hamill, of course. Yeah, he's there. You mentioned that. He also did the voice of Scooby.
Yeah, and he plays Cockknocker, the bad guy of Bluntman and Chronic.
Yep.
And then Jason Biggs and James Vanderbeek make appearances in it as the actors are going to play Jay and Silent Bob. And of course, Jay and Silent Bob come in to stop the movie, so they knocked him out with the help of their monkey that they captured from the monkey facility. And so they go on set dressed as Bluntman and Chronic, and they end up fighting Mark Hamill's Cockknocker. And it's a really hilarious scene. We use lightsabers and such. And then that's when we hear that George Lucas is going to sue somebody. And Will Ferrell's legitimately funny in this movie. Because Kevin basically told Will, go do your Will thing. And he lets Will do his Will thing. And he's really funny in this movie. As playing he's a wildlife marshal who gets caught up in this case.
Yeah. He's like, these are the two most dangerous men in the world. I'm the Clit Commander. Oh man. And then he's doing that interview with Jon Stewart, and they're talking about the clit, and he's like, and I guess he makes a comment, is this even real? He's like, it is real. What's not real is the female orgasm. So they make good on that pun throughout the movie. So it's pretty good.
Yes,
it's
kids. In case you haven't figured out, this movie is not for kids.
It is not.
I mean, that word is
nature's
said
Rubik's
almost
Cube.
250 times in the movie. Yeah. Lots of sexual talk.
Easily.
I think the really funny part is when Jay's talking to his devil version of him and then the angel version. And even the angel tells him,
yeah,
you know what? You play it cool, man. Then you bust that shit out and slap her with the cock. Even the angel says,
yeah. It's like whenever she's ready or when she's asleep. And he's like, what? And then the angel just disappears.
And then,
oh man,
this movie also spawned an actual website. There was a movie in the website of the movie called Movie Poop Shoot that turned into
Poop Shoot.
It turned into a real website for a while. It's no longer online.
What?
But yeah, it ended up becoming a real thing for a while due to this movie.
That's awesome.
And then the end. What's funny is the movie ends up getting made, and as we know, and it makes a lot of money. But they still go beat up all the kids at the end of the movie that made fun of them. They go beat up a priest. They go beat up this kid. They use their money they made from the movie to go fly around and beat up all these kids, but I think it's hilarious.
It's like, are you the one that called us ball lickers?
And the kid's like, yeah.
You're the ones that are the ball lickers.
Tracy Morgan's in this movie?
Man.
That's right. He plays one of the drug dealers.
Yeah, that's right. Tracy Morgan.
That's funny,
he
too.
was the guy at the beginning. He's like, you touched my heart.
Yeah.
He's like, where can we find Miramax?
Jersey
like,
represent. They have unions for selling drugs. That's really funny.
Man, that's weird. It only made, I missed a decimal there. So it made more than its budget.
It's been one of Kevin's more successful films by box office wise.
Yeah,
I think Clerks 2 did pretty good, but this one did pretty well because I mean at this time, I think in 2001, Kevin was at the top of the world back then. Coming off of the success of Clerks, and then Dogma was very successful. Chasing Amy was very successful. So there was a lot of people ready for a Jay and Silent Bob movie, so it did pretty well. It came out at the right time.
I like Wes Craven's cameo with the fake Scream movie.
Oh yeah,
with Shannon Daughtry, and she's like, let's see who you really are. And it's the monkey going, and she's like, cut. She's like, really, Wes, a monkey? She's like, people love the monkey. And then Jay and Silent Bob show up and they're like, this monkey is ours, we love it. And he goes, see, I told you.
Silent Bob speaks a total of 102 words. This is some of his most speaking he has in any movie, if I remember right.
Oh, that's right, because he was egged on to speak too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Harley Quinn was baby Silent Bob in the beginning.
So he started casting her in his movies when she was just a baby. Poor Nepo child.
Ever Carradine played his mom. I wonder if that's was she married to David Carradine?
No, I don't know.
I would have to. She has been married.
Well, I think the interesting
Kobe Brown.
Well, the interesting thing about Jay and Silent Bob is like they obviously spawned from his Clerks films, and they became very popular on their own. I don't know if they've ever quite reached like Cheech and Chong Stoner levels. Maybe Harold and Kumar levels, but but they still were a very niche market for characters. Comic book fans and people with Kevin Smith are big fans of these characters, and they spawned the sequel, Jay and Silent Bob reboot that came out a few years ago. And then Kevin has an idea for one more that he wants to do when they're a little bit older, and he wants to call it Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, like the podcast. And they might do one more down the road. They've definitely been cash cow characters for his movies because he originally planned on them to kind of just be in Mallrats and Clerks, and that was it. And that's why they only had a small part in Chasing Amy, but they just became so popular.
Okay.
They ended up putting them in Dogma and ended up continuing to come back to these characters. And they've kind of become his R2-D2 and C-3PO of his films.
They were, as mentioned in Clerks, which is a great quote. He's like, they're like C-3PO and R2-D2. They haven't been good since the original, but they've been there since the beginning, so they're guaranteed a spot on.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked before on the show. We're big Kevin Smith fans. He's a director that I've grown up literally with his films and have enjoyed all of them. Some of them are. Yoga Hosers isn't that great, and he's made some bad films, but he's at that point in his career now that he's making movies that he wants to make. I really enjoyed Clerks 3 last year and getting to see Jay and Silent Bob again on screen. I enjoyed Jay and Silent Bob reboot. I could do without his Moose Jaws movie. I just think about the killer moose. It just sounds kind of silly. I've never watched Tusk. I tried to. I just couldn't get into it. Where the guy turns into the walrus or whatever it is. Like, it just doesn't sound like my kind of thing. I want to watch Kevin do. But Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, I think, is just one of my favorites because it just came out at a right time where I think the movie it made me laugh. I think I needed to laugh at that time in my life, and I enjoy it. And I can put this on in the background, and I can walk into it and know exactly where it's at or what's going on in the movie. And they're legitimately funny characters. And this has one of Silent Bob's best performances. And Jason, despite his drug use at the time, he's really good in the movie. I mean, somehow he pulled it off. He's funny. He does a good job.
Yeah. No, whenever I read that, I was like, man, really? I knew he had drug problems, but I didn't know it was so intermittent through this film. Apparently, he was, stealing money to buy heroin and stuff, and he was doing some hard shit.
Yeah.
And it's pretty sad.
And and the crazy thing is, as his career went on, he got better. He was really good in Clerks 3. He's really good in maybe Reboot's not as strong as the film, but Jay's good in it. He worked really hard to get better for himself and get better with his career. And he told Kevin, "I'm not going to let you down again." And he's stayed true to that and revived his career, revived his life. I mean, he's doing well, and and can't ask for a better thing for a human being that makes some mistakes and to turn their life around.
It's nice whenever you have the grace of redemption. That's something. Something that everyone needs. Everyone needs a second chance.
You ever watch Jason on his social medias? Man, the dude loves being a dad. I mean, we all love being a dad in our own ways, but man, Jason, it just revived his life completely. and that's great, man. And then to think his journey started while filming this movie, when Kevin took him to the side and said, "Hey, look, you got to stop, or else, and here, and he's still with us 22 years later. He got his life on track, and we have a lot of great films with him to enjoy. Jason's work and Kevin's work, and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was definitely a fun one, man. I really enjoyed this movie, and I never get tired of watching it. So it was a good one to watch this week to lighten some things up after Halloween horrors and the Leatherface chasing people through the woods and scaring the shit out of me.
Definitely.
Cool, man. So we're gonna go back and get a little heavy again next week. But I think this movie is not quite as heavy as a horror movie or a real war movie because it's based on fictional events, semi-based around real world events. If I remember, it's been a long time since I've watched this movie. But based on the comic book by Alan Moore and another movie that Alan Moore disowns because it doesn't like anything that turned into a movie because he's a grumpy ass fucking old man that lives in England. And I imagine Alan Moore that lives in like this really dark castle and has somebody bring him wine all the time just so he can bitch at the world. That's just how I picture Alan Moore.
That's hilarious.
But this is his seminal work from 1990-ish. I think the comic book came out. I'd have to look. But it is V for Vendetta.
I wish I wasn't afraid all the time, but I am.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
Those caught in violation of curfew will be prosecuted without leniency or exception.
It's past curfew, you know.
Mercy. Oh, not tonight.
Who are you?
Gentlemen, I want this terrorist found, and I want him to understand what terror really means.
We're working on several leads.
Her parents went to Tang when she was 12.
It was like those black bags erased them from the face of the earth.
You have one chance. You must tell us the whereabouts of codename V.
If our own government was responsible for the deaths of 100,000 people, would you really want to know? Those who are responsible will be held accountable. The time has come for you to live without fear.
I'm ready.
This country stands on the edge of oblivion. I want everyone to remember why they need us.
Kill him.
My turn. I suddenly had this feeling that everything was connected. We're all part of it. Are we ready for it?
The only verdict is vengeance.
Starring Hugo Weaving and Natalie Portman, produced by the Wachowski brothers that were still brothers at the time. They weren't sisters yet. They didn't direct it. There's a misconception they directed this film. They actually did not direct it. They just produced it. And that's how the studio sold the movie from the makers of The Matrix. But the director that did the film does a good job with it too. And I believe it's on Paramount, HBO Max, a couple of different streaming services, so easy to watch along with us next week. But we will discuss V for Vendetta, even though the 5th of November is Monday. We will remember the 5th of November next week on the show.
That's right.
So it should be fun to watch it. It's been, I don't know, I can't remember everything. It's been a long time since I watched this. So I remember Natalie Portman shaving her head in it and all that stuff. And I remember her getting captured by V and him kind of grooming her towards his war and all that. So I remember bits and pieces of it. So it should be good to rewatch this one this week.
Definitely, man. And some good action, definitely. And some good theatrics.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah.
really good performance by Hugo Weaving, if I remember correctly, in this one. Yeah. So should be good.
Yeah. No, I liked him.
So that's next week on the show, V for Vendetta. Until then, the rebelradiopodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs. And we thank you as always for listening. And again, our Halloween Horrors episodes are currently playing on apps. If you didn't catch up on all those, we hope you enjoyed them. And we've got some good stuff coming up to close out the rest of the year. But until then, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
Remember, as always, just go there and do it.
Just go there and do it.